everybody, Kent Stones of Fake Not, the community of hardworking professionals that are working to build brands in this time when just so much seems fake. So wanted to continue our discussion about trust. We've been having a couple of different live streams on this, and the first one I talked about the different types of trust, and there's two basic types of trust. There's the functional level of trust, and it moves along a continuum toward a more emotional level of trust. Now, all trust has to start at a functional level, which is basically, is there an expectation of an outcome as a result of a transaction between two entities? And it can progress along this continuum toward more emotional level of trust. That's really influenced by, number one, the amount of risk that is inherent in that transaction or exchange. But number two, there's three primary elements of trust that really influence its movement along that continuum. Last week we talked about the first element, which was competency, or in the integrative model of trust by Shorman, Davis, and Meyer. They called it ability, but competency is a lot of the historical things that we have typically talked about in brand positioning, and that is quality, service, experience, feature set, differentiation, all of those different things that absolutely we have to work on and do a lot of work to understand, but they've really become table stakes, and we can do those things well, but we don't get a lot of benefit for it. They're just an expectation. But if we don't do them well, there can be a huge penalty that we pay for that. So it's where we've spent a lot of time and resource in the past on planning, resource allocation, execution. But really now it's just become step one of building a long-term sustainable brand. And this week, what we want to talk about is we're going to talk about the second step, which is that of integrity. Now, last week I talked a little bit about integrity and defined it as the set of values or principles that a person expects from another or another entity in terms of their interaction with them. And in theory, the whole idea is if, as a brand, we have a strong set of principles and values, and we're able to articulate those in a way that allows an alignment with an audience that shares those same principles and values, then in theory, they're going to choose our brand over others because of that. And I think if you're like me, you've seen a lot of brands, consultants, agencies, all focusing on this whole area of being purpose-driven or values-driven, which is all really good. But probably no surprise when you're going to hear me say this, it's still not enough. And the reason being is that even being purpose-driven is still very self-centered, still very brand-centric, in that it's thinking about what are our values, what are our principles, and how do we find people who are like that to buy our brand. Not bad, but I want to give an example of this as to why, an illustration of this, why I think it matters, and how we can start thinking a little differently and beyond that. So I was watching an advertisement on television the other day, and it was from one of the larger local car dealerships, and they were talking about how they had converted their dealership into kind of a display for the local children's hospital, Children's Mercy. And they were talking about, if you walk into our dealership, you're going to think you were in Children's Mercy Hospital. And they went on to explain their support of the hospital and how important children's health was. And then at the end, the whole emphasis was, if you buy a car, a part of the proceeds will go to Children's Mercy Hospital. Now, on the surface, you're thinking, okay, what's wrong with that? Why is that a bad thing? Everybody wins. You know, the hospital gets a donation, the automobile dealer gets a sell, etc. But the challenge is that's still just very self-centered, and people are looking for a lot more beyond just the event and that specific occurrence of something that shows or on the surface shows that you're doing something that is of value. So for the key thing is the hospital only benefits if someone spends $30,000 or so, whatever a new car costs. um, but that's the only way the value occurs. And what people are looking for now, in addition to that, is what is underneath it all. What is the intention? What is what happens when the cameras go off and it's tomorrow? What is that dealership doing for the hospital? Are their employees volunteering at the hospital in some way? Are they offering transportation services to out-of-town parents whose children happen to be at the hospital? What is it? What is it that they're doing when no one's looking that is having a positive impact on the hospital? That is what people care about. That is what is going to build trust long term, because that gets to their underlying intention. Or in the as I mentioned in the model, they call it benevolence, but it's the same thing. It's just like, do you ultimately have your customers' best interests at heart? So that's what we're going to talk about next week when we dig into the step 3, benevolence or intention. And we're also going to start looking about now how this all starts to fit together and strategies that you can start to employ that are going to take you from a level of functional trust, if you're meeting that basic level of expectation of your customer, and starting to progress up that continuum toward a stronger level of emotional trust. So that's going to be later this week. Hope everyone's having a great afternoon. It's pretty warm out here today, so I hope it's a little cooler for you all. Ken Stones from Fake Not, and we will talk to you later this week.